Hey, Don here. Okay, back with another live stream. Hope it's working because my preview up there is not showing. There I am. Okay. Um, I know the sound was coming through. I checked that before I got on the camera. So you might see something a little different if you've seen all my other live streams, any of them. IP webcam, free video recording, so and so, so and so. That is a watermark that they put on there when you use it to record with. If you're just streaming, which I stream it to my local routers, and then from we use OBS Studio to switch cameras and audio and all that stuff, and then go back to go out to YouTube. Here's a desktop. This is OBS Studio control panel here, the control interface, whatever you want to call it. But this camera, the reason I have it on record, I never used them for record until last few months because of that watermark and because I didn't really have a use for it. But I decided I needed a security cam, and I wanted one. I knew I could do this. Already knew there's lots of apps you can get to do this with. This is the one I like the best, and I knew I could do this, so I just turned on recording and set it up in the window, and it's been there 2-3 months, 24/7. Have to of course the phone is not made to run 24/7. I of course have to have it plugged into the charger to keep it running. So sometimes it would fill up the cache memory and all that sort of stuff, and it would have to. Actually, it was going like. Sometimes after a while I started. I looked at it every day and I'd review the videos for a while, and then I started forgetting about it, and I might go a couple week or two without remembering it, and sometimes it would still be just streaming away, and sometimes it wouldn't. Would go back to the the login screen, and the app would. Sometimes it was on but not streaming. Sometimes the app was closed. Lately, that's what's been happening, and not sure what caused it. I've got 3 of these phones that are identical. You see, phone 1 that I've got set over there. I've got it. So over here at kind of an angle because I've got my laptop straight in front of me. I'm using it as my server right now. My Dell 6000 laptop, the Acer laptop, battery is not about to go, and it won't. If it gets sometimes the power glitches and goes out for even just a second. Well, it won't boot back. The battery's not keeping it running, and so I'm losing my server. So I don't really, and that's the thing about batteries, laptops or phones, and running them. That's what I'm going to get into, running them 24/7 for long periods of time. I think that Acer was running about 6 months or more, maybe 8 months before the battery was not great. I mean, it was. I think it's the original battery, and it's a Dell. Anyway, I can't remember I can't remember the numbers, but anyway, it's a dual core. It's several years old. So it was great for a server, but I've never. It's the first time I've used a laptop for a server, and of course, the one reason why I didn't want to do it is because batteries stay plugged in all the time. These whichever kind you've got, lithium ion or so and so, so and so. They you run them for 6 months or 2 or 3 months in the case, and especially the older they are, then they're going to, they may get, even though they have BMS, battery management system on it, they will very likely, especially as they get older, end up being a little overcharged. And you got your software in your phone. Let's just talk about the phone because that's what I'm wanting to talk about. You got your software in your phone. You've got should be a BMS built, little electronic chips built into the battery, like it should be. The input, your 5-volt DC input should go through that BMS and then to the battery, but also the software on the phones. You can the built-in software. You can put add-on software, and I've tried a couple of different add-on battery management softwares, and I didn't like them. What they ended up doing was shutting down the apps, especially if you're going to use it for streaming. You don't want your app being turned off, or you don't want the memory being cleared. I figured out with streaming video on cam 1 and 2 and audio on cam 3, which is pretty much all any of my routers can handle at one time, and not get the audio and video way out of sync. Can't really do audio and video on one phone. I think that's because of the Wi-Fi chips on the phones just aren't fast enough, because my routers are all gigabit routers with 700 to 1200, depending on which router. The one I'm using now is 1200 megabits per second wireless. Well, that'd be on the 5 gigahertz, and I'm using 2.4 gigahertz, so because the phones won't do 5 gigahertz, but that's still at least 800, 900. I don't remember right now, but anyway, that should be way, way more than enough. But you know, you've always got a little bit of latency, and I mean the the audio and video will be pretty well in sync, and then get out of sync, and it'll just kind of just like a wave of it. I've figured that out over the last several years of doing this. Anyway, have to be plugged in to use them. So usually what I have done ever since I got these phones, several I don't remember what year. I'd have to go look on Walmart, see when I bought them, but this is Alcatel A845L is what it is. That's what all three of them are. They are, I think they're 5 years old, you know, from when they were first manufactured, and they were 2 or 3 years old when I got them. So I've had them at least 3 years, probably more. And so, and the way I've used them is, I plug them into power strips that I turn off. I leave them on, you know, they're being charged all day. And that really has, you know, I mean, all these years, I don't think it's hurt them at all. And I did a bunch of research to see what I should and shouldn't do with the batteries before I started doing it. But, and then I would turn the power strips off at night when I'm done with my computer and everything. And of course, I don't use them. Sometimes I use them for streaming, sometimes I don't. But this one, I already had this problem with phone 3. It acts up sometimes, and it would. When I try to shut it down, I would shut it down when I was through streaming with it, and what I didn't know was that it didn't shut down. It rebooted and went into like the screen where you can like erase the. I don't know what's causing it. Never did quite figure it out. It went into the screen where you know, and it's a white screen with a few options like reboot, set the phone back to factory settings. Basically, it would reformat the onboard memory, you know, onboard ROM, and back to the factory way it came in from the factory. So, and it would set like that till the next day, or maybe a couple of days if I wasn't, you know, I wasn't streaming it again. So I'm looking over there where I always set it, so I'm looking away from the camera. That's just the way I think. So if I did that, well, that's not a very good view. That normally I have my camera in a better place, but anyway, over here, at least now I'm looking at the camera. I have it sitting over here on the my TRS-80s where I'd set it up on top of it, and the Radio Shack TRS-80 computer that I never play with, because I've always wanted. Someone gave it to me several years ago, and he gave me the books and everything, software, everything. And, you know, there's a real learning curve because I didn't start with it. I didn't start with computers, and I almost bought one back in 1983 or so. That's what year this one was made, but I didn't. And then in the last several years ago, I started thinking, well, I wish I'd have had one of those, you know. And anyway, I found a guy offering one to give one away online, just from looking at old computer forums and stuff, and said, hey, anyway, he gave it to me. He mailed it to me, and pretty cool. But and you know, I was just pretty. I'm getting so sidetracked. My mind is doing better today. Okay, so that's the reason I haven't messed with it much, is because I have a real hard. My mind is not always working great with my health problems, and I have a real hard time, especially reading books. You know, printed text. My eyes swap letters, numbers, and stuff, and comprehending the instructions to. I know how to do just a few little things on it, just from learning DOS. You know, because that's what it's a really early version of DOS and then use. Anyway, back to the phones. Phone 3 is what I call. I numbered them 1, 2, 3. Phone 3, the one that's got these lapel mics right here in this little bag on my hip. This one I'm talking through the Wi-Fi. That's how I get a wireless mic, is plugging these lapel mics into the phone and then streaming over the Wi-Fi to back to OBS Studio on my computer and then out through YouTube. So it, like I said, would hang up in that screen that's really just for, you have to hit certain buttons at the right sequence to get that to happen on purpose, but it was doing it, and I catch it like that. Got to where it was doing it real often, you know, and I'd forget to check, and and it sits out there for days sometimes like that. Well, what I finally figured out is, long story long, um, that battery, all of a sudden one day I noticed that battery was completely swelled, the case was swelled and the battery was swelled up. And what that is they call it off-gassing. And what it is the battery chemistry, the chemicals, the powder, the nickel cadmium hydride, or I can't remember all the names of everything. In whatever they're made of, there's some of them that are. I'd have to go looking things up to try to. I'm not going to try to explain it because I've studied them for ever since they came out with these kind of batteries. Last 20 years, I've studied batteries on and off. It's like electronics, it's just something that's interesting to me. But then I don't retain everything unless I'm really looking right at it. But all the details. But they they can be dangerous. They can catch on fire. Everybody pretty well knows that. If you ever seen one of those, you know, battery fire videos, if you haven't, you might want to look at them. Make you think more about watching your batteries and taking care of them. So anyway, what I believe, I'm almost certain was going on is when it was in that screen, the software that keeps it from trying to overcharge it, keeping the phone from trying to. I think what I'm gathering really is that these phones depend more on the software. That the phones never completely turn off if you didn't figure that out. There's always some, could call it firmware, I guess, but it's, I don't know what they call it, but some software that's running even when it's shut down. You might have seen stories about, if you've got location turned on to Google, that you can still be phone when you've seen it in the movies for years, even before smartphones. They they can track them. The Big Brother can track your phone even when it's turned off, and so you take the battery out and of course for good measure you break the phone and you throw it all in the lake or something. So that Big Brother can't find you. Well, these smartphones, they do. I mean, you can turn that stuff off. Of course, there's always something that'll turn it back on, like Google updates or something. But because I used to try to turn all that stuff off and keep it off. But there's two types of location finding things in there too. The one that triangulates where how they would triangulate from the towers where your phone is, and then there's I have lost the word. Probably sitting there yelling it at me. The one that you use for flying airplanes and stuff. That doesn't tell you much, does it? Unless you're into that. I'll think of it later. But that's two things. That's two things I know are running. And when it's turned off, evidently, what I'm figuring out from process of elimination, when it's shut down normally, it's not really completely off, but the software that manages maybe the BMS has software telling it what to do, but I think if that were the case, anytime the BMSs that I've seen in all the electronics videos I've seen for regular like tool batteries and stuff, they don't have any external software telling them what to do. They are basically hardware that does it. The chips themselves only allow so many volts and so many amps through those chips. Well, in these phones, I don't know exactly how it's set up. I haven't seen any, information or videos that explains it to you. But I have observed that when the phone is still plugged into the charger and it is not turned off, running, but when it is in that reset screen, I'll call it. If you've ever seen it, mine's white with just 2 or 3 choices on it. Reboot. It's a little tricky to get it into that screen there. I could even try to show it to you. I might try on the phone too. It is not, the charging is not being regulated. and it is overcharging the battery. And I just didn't think that would be possible because I figured there's a BMS built into the battery. And I think there is, but evidently it is allowed to be controlled by the software on the phone. So what I'm going to do is get this phone 2 here. I'm going to get it over here and put it in front under my endoscope, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. I should have already grabbed it, I think. Making more sense. So let's see, phone 1, let's see. Yeah. Let's go ahead and get on the endoscope. No, let's don't get on the endoscope till we're ready. Okay, and I do have it plugged in. I guess I can't get it in front of the camera. I'm going to unplug it. I went ahead and plugged it back in because, well, I had a lot of trouble getting everything working to do this video. But this phone, I really missed it. Here we go. I really missed having it like this because it's the one that I have set up with a stick, so I can, you know, do handheld shots. But I'll set it over here under my endoscope, and I'll turn it off and everything. But I thought I'd have it running because I wanted to show you how swelled it was, and one way to show it was let's go ahead and turn this around this way. You see how swelled it is? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? And if you look, you see that? The if it wasn't for those rubber bands, I think it has swelled so much. I don't think it's swelled as much as it was when earlier today, several hours ago now, is when I discovered that it was swelling so much. I think I did realize it was swelling some, but it wasn't bad. Well, in the last couple of weeks, it's gotten worse. But the actual screen is popped loose. There you go. Look at that. You can see the light. The screen is actually. Oh, I see. That's weird. When you lift up on that, it makes a light come on. I noticed that you were seeing strange things in the. Let me turn this way now. So I can show what I'm doing. When I went black there, but just because I, you know, the blocking the camera. The IP webcam's still running, but so I'm going to get out of IP webcam. Makes it a little more tricky with the rubber bands on there. There, okay, I got out of IP webcam. And you see the little, looks like water, like you're touching water. I'm not touching the middle of the screen. I'm touching way over here. It'll be in all different places, and it used to respond much better. I think the problem is that right there. The screen's being lifted up by the swelling of the battery. So let's get these thing out of my little case. Oh, let's go ahead and shut it down first. That's all I wanted to show with it running was the power off. Yeah, I don't want to get into the battery or anything with it with it running. But yeah, and these rubber bands and everything are how I keep the phone on my little. See, it's a stick. This is actually off my clothes tree that's behind me in my room. It split and it wouldn't stay on there, and so I put a longer. I think I put some glue in there and a longer screw, drilled it out, so I could put a long screw in it without busting it, and that's how I made my selfie stick. But this metal thing, if you haven't seen, that is a giant paper clip that I had bought almost 20 years ago by accident. I thought I was buying different size, you know, ordered them from Staples, and that's what it came. And I had no use for them until I got these phones, and I was like, oh, that makes a pretty good phone mount. They work really well for that. And I already had them, so they might be, you know, it was kind of too expensive. You know that stuff they sell for mounting phones for making videos and stuff? They're usually just too darn expensive, you know, $7 to $35 or more. I think ridiculous, but yeah, that's not That other one didn't do this. This is not the one that I'm talking on, the one that I was originally talking about. And it's okay. I didn't say that it worried me so much. I took the battery out of it, and I didn't. I figured out, okay, if I put it in an old metal coffee can, because I still have some of those. I put it in there, and I thought, if that thing decides to spontaneously combust, it's the closest thing to it I can imagine. I don't want it anywhere where it could burn the house down or anything. And so I was like, where am I going to put the thing? I put it in the garage, and it does catch on fire. Then, of course, it wasn't on a charger or in the phone. Then I didn't want it in the garage because I wouldn't know it, and it'd be, it might get hot enough to melt the can, and I didn't really have a place to set it to where it could seem safe. There's too much stuff in the garage. So then I thought, well, I really didn't. I did a bunch of research. I really didn't think it was going to catch on fire, but I didn't want to charge it. I was afraid it might. That's more swelled, I think, than the other one was. It's show you down this. I'm trying to hold that. In the right place. I can't seem to find the right place. See, I need to actually be, that one it's more swelled on this end. I mean, that's really, really swelled. But anyway, I left it for a month or two, and I thought, well, the battery's no good, and I found the batteries. You could get them, but I really hated to. I paid $15 each for these phones, and the batteries were 16 something, and really it would be worth it for me as long as the phones are still working good, because I don't even use them for phones. I use them just for cameras, and I used to, I thought, well, I'll use them. I thought, well, I'll use them for a pocket computer and a camera, but really all I end up using for is a camera. But yeah, there's some real. That's screen. I've had one of these apart. I don't know if it's this one or the number 3. I'm sure 3 is the one I took apart. I mean, yeah, the one that I'm talking on. Anyway, after the swelling went down after I let it set for long enough. Went back down pretty much almost to normal. And what it is the bags that they put the battery chemicals in, real sealed real tight, and that's the only real safety measure they've got, because if you puncture those bags, that's when they're dangerous. And so, you don't want to puncture the bag to let the gas out. It's hydrogen gas, and it is flammable. I'm going to open this up. If I can get it open without messing up. Let's try on the other side where the screen's not loose. Usually I'll go on the other side. I don't know if... the only time I need that camera is when I'm doing a close-up. Let's see if I can just get this other camera. Usually I have the camera set so that if I move out from under the... There we go. Now that might work. So if I have it, I was going to aim it straight down at it, but you know what, I'm going to leave it like that. That way I can be under here and show. So if I haven't set, so if I move out from under the, let's don't do cam 1 and desktop, let's do cam 1 and endoscope. There we go. And I don't like one of my trash cans in the video. Let's see. So, I'm trying to see if there's a better position to put all this in. It would be a... There we go. Place where I can actually... Am I too close now? I'm confused about which one's which. Okay, yeah, now. So, my let's make sure everything seems okay on my live stream. It seems to be all right. Okay, so seems it's I don't understand. I don't hope that my preview is showing everything being really dark, and I don't. Doesn't show that way on my preview on my computer, but my preview of YouTube shows that to be really dark. Never seen it do like that before. I think it's all right. I think it might be the laptop that I'm using for the preview. I hope. Okay, so everything looks perfect on my. Okay, I'm gonna turn it around the other way. I'm afraid I'm gonna break something in the screen. I'm trying to do it on the side. I usually do it on that other side. It's harder to get off than normal. There we go. These screens, these backs, these covers, they're just snap-on, but it is harder to get off. There we go. Oh, well, the battery fell out, but it is, well, yeah, that's the worst I've ever seen one of these. It is hard as a rock, too. That's what, I remember the other one was really hard. Now, you wouldn't ever want to puncture that, especially when it's swelled, because remember one thing, you know, you have, well, I'm not, of course, I don't have any flames in here or anything. The hydrogen really doesn't have something to ignite it in here, but the hydrogen is very flammable. I guess for, but what would be dangerous is if you cause the, let's see, I can't remember. I don't. It's not. I've seen the videos. You know, it's not just that if oxygen mixes with the chemicals. I can't remember if you mix the. See, there's layers in these batteries, and you see that's the bag I'm talking about. This is just a paper cover. Inside of there is the bag. That's the actual battery. This plastic is kind of a, well, that's the interface for it. You know, the connector. There's an actual. It might be no. I was going to say that might be a switch to tell the battery that it's plugged into the phone, but no, it's not. But anyway, I saw people trying to set them on fire on purpose, and you had to. They hit them with hammers and stuff. They were doing tool batteries, but generally, if you poke the screwdriver down in there real good, it would just poof, set right up. Sometimes you can just hit them a few times with a hammer or something. But anyway, yeah, that one kind of scares me now that I have it out like I do. There's a very hard swell on that side. Oh, I think it's just at that. That paper stuff is kind of paper, kind of plastic. I'm not sure. It might be more plastic than anything. But the way this thing aims, it fools me that where I need to be under it. It's actually more comfortable for me to not have to reach so far. But yeah, there's the bag down in there, the white. And that is, boy, that really worries me. Do you not understand the preview? I mean, it looks great here, but it's so dark you may not be seeing anything up there on YouTube. I don't understand that. I think maybe it's just the lighting settings on my laptop. You know how they automatically get darker when there's not. I'll look at the battery and see if it's plugged in. I just rebooted it before I started, so it should be all right. Yeah, looks like. I don't know. I thought I had it. I went through the settings and kind of set it, normally I don't want it to get any darker or do anything. But the screen doesn't look, it looks a little dimmer than normal to me. Well, of course, I'm sitting real far away from it too. It's an old laptop, and you have to be sitting kind of directly looking straight at it for it not to look dark. But I guess the only way I'm going to know is get over here on my, let me get over here on my desktop of this machine. Make sure it's not acting up. That's another thing. I'm probably going to make a video here after a while on this. This has been running since about 2 o'clock this morning, and it's stayed right there since about 8 o'clock this morning. I was transferring 105 videos from my Google Photos over to YouTube. And first I tried uploading some of them off my, same videos, but from my hard drives, and they had to be, they wouldn't accept them. They're older videos. They were MPEGs, MPGs, and they wanted MP4s, and I converted one, and that worked. And I thought, well, I think I'll see if originally I had them years ago, several years ago. I transferred them, and it worked from Google Photos. And I thought, well, maybe Google Photos has transcoded them to something that YouTube likes better. And then all I have to do is transfer them instead of uploading them, and transcoding them, the ones I have on my hard drive, and then uploading them. But it also didn't. Let's don't get into that. But some of them, there's one right there. See, those two have not finished either. They just say they're processing, and they have not finished either. And they're new videos made on my phones, and they should work. So I don't know. Maybe because of all this, they're in their beta of their new interface. It may be that. I don't know. But anyway, I didn't want to turn it off until I was sure it wasn't going to work. But Chrome uses up too many. I don't use Chrome. This is Chromium, not Chrome, but it still uses. It was fine until I put my bookmarks in there, and then it started. It used so many resources I couldn't use it. I actually don't. Oh, here we go. Go to YouTube. I don't have my shortcuts or anything to get me to live. I have shortcuts in Firefox. I guess I should have just opened up Firefox. Oh, there's my live stream. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Right there. I have shortcuts in Firefox. I guess I should have just opened up Firefox. Now oh, there's my live stream. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Right there. I have shortcuts in Firefox. I guess I should have just opened Firefox. Now oh, there's my live stream. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Wait for it to switch. I have shortcuts in Firefox. I guess I should have just opened Firefox. It's just something to do with that. Oh, there's getting an echo now because of me doing that. So yeah, now we're back. Okay. Yeah, I was worried about that. So whatever my preview laptop's doing, I don't know why. I don't remember ever catching it doing that. But yeah, I can't continue to keep using these things as 24/7 like that plugged in, because that's what happens to the battery. Yeah, there you can see that battery pack real good, and not poking at it or anything. Be very careful. That's what would be dangerous. If you puncture that sack and you get those chemicals mixed in, or yeah, that's what it is. There's thin layers, probably of plastic of some sort, between the different chemicals, and if you puncture those into those and then they mix, that's when they can just combust. So and with it being swelled up like that, like I said, you have the outgassing of hydrogen that is also flammable, and so that's another danger of getting, well, if the hydrogen, if you were a smoker or something, and the hydrogen, you're smoking while doing this, or you had some other thing, you were working near your hot water heater and it decided to light up, that's something you might not think of. If you're in the garage and the hot water heater's out there or something like that, or a utility room or something. If you have a gas heater, or really, if it was electric, it could still do it, because if they get hot enough to, make gases like hydrogen ignite. Anyway, that would definitely rupture the battery, and then it would be burning on its own. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, and it runs fine with the with the battery swelled like that, but it's not, of course, what you want. The cover is real flexible, so you know it can handle being stretched. I have an SD card in it, and that's the SIM card, which you know, like I said, I haven't ever activated them. I don't use them. Let's see if you can. Can't really see any of that. I don't think without getting. Trying to get. What am I? It's confusing me having that thing at an angle. It's the wrong direction. There. Still confusing me. Okay, here we go. I have to look at the preview to read it. But let's go just to the endoscope. Maybe I can read it. I really can't read it like that. Yeah, that's the sticker inside there, what kind of phone it is and everything. A845L. It's actually made by Track Phone Wireless Inc. That's what they say. Well, I think Track Phone Wireless is the wireless portion, and then Alcatel is the manufacturer, from what I understand. But oh, I can do that. I need to get the, you know, the surveillance footage off of here. And I was thinking I would maybe use. Usually I just do it wirelessly, but it takes just because I don't want to take it apart and take the card out. Or you can plug in a USB cable and then plug it into the computer, and that's what I was thinking I would do. Since I've got it open, I guess I may as well. I have an SD card adapter. I can plug it straight into my computer, and I think I'll do that later though because I've got this issue with the. This thing's been running all night. This machine's been running all night, and it's doing okay, I think. Hopefully my audio's not so bad that you can't tell what's going on, but OBS is getting, really using some resources there, though. But see, Chrome, like I said, normally Chrome uses a lot more resources than Firefox. Chromium does. And I was really worried about these. There's an animation for every preview, and I was worried that it was going to. I don't know if they stop running when you're not looking at them or not, but that one has been doing that since 2 o'clock this morning. It was going real fast until, actually it was at 32 before I went to bed, you know. Actually, I quit at 4. I might have only been running at 30 minutes before I quit, but anyway. Oh, I didn't go to the desktop. This little animation here, I don't know why they added that. That's just to use up all the resources on the computer is the only reason I can imagine for them to do that. At first I thought it was actually showing clips of where it is in the process, but I don't think so. I think those have been the same ones. Yeah, they haven't. Well, of course these haven't processed, but anyway, I was planning on making a separate video on that. Then when everything's, you know how it goes, everything starts going wacky at the same time. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to show that, and oh, let's see if we can tell what kind of battery this is. See if I'm sure it says on there what it is. Li-Polymer. See, now that the way they label them, it depends on the manufacturer. So lithium polymer battery is what it should be. But sometimes they'll label them in ways that you can't exactly tell what the actual chemistry is of them without doing some real research, you know, just by reading on them. But that says lithium polymer, Li-Polymer, so that should be Li-Polymer instead of, let's see, well, what is there's lithium cadmium and nickel cadmium. Yeah, I can't remember. I'd have to you know, start doing some research again to refresh my memory. But see, It takes 5 volts to charge them. They're 4.5 volt batteries actually. So you got to put in more than whatever the device runs at in order to charge it. And so 4.35 is pretty close to the, well, your 5 volt source, your charger or your USB on your computer or whatever. It may be, it's probably going to range between, hopefully if it's only like 4.5 volts, it may not charge your battery, but 5 volts, it won't charge your battery. Well, it won't charge it all the way, but 5 volts to 6, generally what I see is the range that they'd run under. I think if they went down to 4 volts, they would not be working right. You're really not going to get a full charge that way. But made by Scud, made in China. 11CP5 is 5561. They probably could tell you the year it was made if you understood the code. But and there's the battery model number up there. See, and it has the branded for Alcatel One Touch. That's the brand of the phone, brand name and everything. Oh, here's some more on the back. See what we got there. Same information there. Oh, manufacture date. There it is, straight up, 2014. So see, this is 2019. So that's a pretty good life as batteries go. I mean, it's still working. And what I understand is they will start swelling like this as they get old, even if, it's not necessarily that you're abusing the thing. Like I said, I do know that in Phone 3 that I figured out that it was that swelling it kept doing it every time I got stuck in that screen, that restart up screen. Do not disassemble, shortcut, dispose of in fire, do not expose to high temperatures, 60 degrees C, 140 Fahrenheit. Oh, okay. Pass disassembler. Okay, so that's a different language. Serial number for it, and what's that? And Alcatel One Touch. So, yeah. And this, like I said, mine didn't go. The swelling didn't go down in it until a month or two. The other one. And it did, when I started using it again, it did swell back up a little bit, but just a little, the one in Phone 3. As long as I started being really careful about not letting it get into that weird screen. I forget how you're supposed to get in there. I think you hold power and the volume button to get into that screen. Oh, let's see how our screen looks. Yeah, see, you would think it would only push the cover loose back, because the cover's so flexible, but at some certain point there, this one, it started pushing out on the screen itself. I can't find it now. I can't find where it was doing it. I don't know why it was doing it. Okay, where's my buttons? Okay, it was right here. I forgot that I was only showing that. Right there's where it was. Maybe it really wasn't loose after all. I started to get I'll grab my screwdriver, but I'll try to be easy on it. I don't know that it is pushed loose. I thought it was. It might have just fooled me because really it was just pulling the cover off and the light was shining through the edges of the screen, which you don't normally see, that the cover goes on up. That's what caught my attention, was the light, before I realized it was swelled. I went over there to check it today, and it wasn't. The screen was dark, and it was gone to sleep, and the I don't remember if the IP webcam was running or not. I don't even know if I might have just rebooted it before I even really looked to see if it was still running in the background. So you can have it running, and I usually leave it where you can see the image on the screen, so you can see to aim the camera. Well, that keeps it awake too. That and the settings you have to set to keep them awake. They'll go to sleep if you don't set them right when you're trying to use them for a surveillance camera. Yeah, it didn't pop it off of there after all. But I don't remember which one it was now. It might have been this one. I got one of them wet. I dropped it in water. or did I just, no, I didn't drop it in water. I was using it, holding it in one hand and squirting the coils on my air conditioner with soapy water to check for leaks, and I accidentally sprayed the heck out of this thing. And the water did get inside. It was just all inside, so I completely disassembled it as far as I could without breaking anything. I took all the screws out here. I think it might have been this one. It was either this one or one. It wasn't 3 because, I don't believe, because 1 and 2 is the ones I always use for cameras. But, well, that's good. I thought that had come loose. It had messed up the lamination. Be careful and mess something up there. So that's good. I thought it was actually... I know which corner it was because the one that has the back button there is the one that, yeah, just like that. That's the one that was loose, and it's okay. So let's look at this with my magnifying glass. Yeah, it's not I believe, well, I don't know if it's laminated on there or if it's, the screws hold it. I think it's laminated to those screws. See, like that screw right there. It doesn't go all the way into that cover, I'm almost certain. But, okay, good. I guess I should, well, if I take this out, then if I boot it back up, I was thinking about booting it up to show, see if I could show that screen up, you know, that reset screen. Let's see if I can, I don't know if the battery will even set in there. It's so swelled, the bottom, it's not just on the top side, the bottom side is so swelled too. It doesn't really want to go into its spot. Really doesn't want to go into its spot. So I don't think I'll try to do that. I'd be fighting it so much that could actually be dangerous. So I'm not going to put that battery back in there until it, until that swelling goes down, or if I decided to, see if I want to get a new battery, then I'm going to really need 3. And I just kept thinking, well, for the price of 3 batteries, I might be able to buy a decent little camera, you know, better camera than these cameras. I mean, this is 3 cameras, or 2 cameras and a wireless mic is what I've got out of them. But they're not, you know, they're only like, I don't even think the video is quite 2 megapixels. I think it's 1.7. The still pictures is 5 megapixels, but on these things, and they're okay, you know. They do 1080p technically, but see, there's a lot of differences in video. If you know about video resolutions and stuff and bit rates and all that stuff, there's so much to know about it. I learned it as it was being invented, but I was into video many years before. Well, when I was a teenager, my grandmother was into making 8mm movies. I mean, we had movies ever since before I was born, you know, of our family. And she gave me her Brownie 8mm silent movie camera when I was 17, and I made some videos with that. And it's a pretty good little camera, but it's real expensive. By that time, it was already getting pretty expensive to buy the film and have it developed. And then I kept using it on and off up until the early 80s, and when I had my own kids, you know, and stuff. But and about that time, VCRs came out and video, you know, video cameras and stuff for consumers. But you know, they were $1,500 for a camera and $500 to $800 for a VCR. I wouldn't buy one until the prices went down. At the time, I actually could have afforded them, you know, like save up for kind of for a few months or 6 months or whatever, but because I had a pretty good job. But I didn't. So anyway, I didn't get another. I didn't actually get a. I didn't get another video camera until the late '90s, and I bought a Sony BVP3, which in about the late '80s, early '90s is a studio camera, a tube camera, TV studio camera. but could also be, you know, carried on your shoulder and everything. It wasn't just a giant tripod camera, but you could put it on a tripod. So it was a portable camera, but it was studio quality, 750 lines of resolution, which was pretty good back then. Um, I got it at an auction for 350 bucks, equipment auction, and I actually had two of them. I had a JVC and that Sony, and the JVC needed a little work, and I had it fixed, and then I sold it. I thought, well, I don't need two cameras. I could have really used them. But anyway, I kept it for several years and then sold it. I ended up selling it for 1,500 bucks, and shipping it to Mexico, to a guy down in South Texas, and he took it to Mexico to use in a cable studio in Mexico. Old Mexico, not New Mexico. And and this was in '98 or something like that when I sold it, or maybe even two. It wasn't. It was probably '99 or early 2000 when I sold it. Actually, yeah, I remember. I had it for 3 or 4 years or 5 years. I don't remember. I really enjoyed having that. It was a real camera, and I never. It was, you know, you were supposed to record on 3/4 inch decks, and I actually did have. I also had a mini 3/4 deck recorder, but you needed a special cable, and I could have had one made, but I never did get one. I would just plug it into a VCR, and it would. And the VCR is the most they could do is like 240 or so lines of resolution, so it made a very noticeably good picture on a VCR. And then I would use, usually I would use a mixer to kind of amplify the audio and send it to the VCR. Or if I couldn't do that, but see, there wasn't mic built. There was a shotgun mic on the camera, but I never used it because I didn't have the cables for that either. The only reason I could even plug it into VCR, there was an RCA video test output on it, and it was really meant just for testing your video signal, but I used it for actual recording. It didn't work great, and of course it had a real nice zoom on it and everything. And one year, I don't know where that tape is. I always meant to digitize that and put it online. I'd recorded I left it sitting outside for hours and, you know, let it go for, I don't remember. Well, I think I set the VCR on the best quality, so it probably went about an hour or a little more. Anyway, I recorded the eclipse of the moon one year back in the late 90s. But for sound, I had some SM58s. I used to do sound for bands, and I had some SM58 mics and stuff, and I would plug them into the VCR, but you really need to amplify that signal to get a good signal. So a friend of mine let me borrow his little realistic mixer, like a 4-channel mixer or something back then. But much like this Behringer that I use now, that I just got a couple of years ago, it's much better than that one was. But anyway, same thing, type of thing. I'm trying to decide, okay, I don't want to put the battery in it, so I'm going to get this chip out, this SD card, so I can get my data off of it. And I have 2 of these, and SD card adapters that came with. I bought some. They're Strontium brand. I don't know if that shows up on there or not. I didn't even know these things existed. I knew, you know, I always knew the micro or mini or whatever SD cards that these things are. It's 64 gig. Yeah, let's see. Oh, this is the brand Nitro, I believe. Oh, Strontium Nitro. And I believe this is the one that, yeah, this is the adapter. It came with a regular size, you know, full size SD card adapter and a USB adapter. And the only thing is, the other one quit working, and this one started breaking out on the side. So now, if you don't watch out, you could actually plug it in wrong. It's kind of split, and I really haven't been using it hardly at all. But you could, you know, you short it out, either run the electronics in this, or and the other one's not busted. So I kept thinking, well, maybe I could put these guts in that other one, but trying to bust these open and put them back together without breaking them is probably a nearly impossible feat. But I do, and I can't really wrap tape around them, then they're not going to go into the computer, you know. But yeah, they're really cool little deals. I have really depended on them. Oh yeah, there's a Big burr on that. Or that piece. I still saved that piece. I thought I might try to put it back in there. Get that burr off there. I don't think, I mean, not get it off, but get it back down. Just make sure, I know which way on this computer I'm using. Yeah, well, I'm usually always using a different brand in there, and it's real loose and it would fall out, so I had to put tape around it. But this is the one that came with it. It doesn't fall out. Stays pretty good. So let's get on the desktop. Well, actually, let's don't do that right now because I need to reboot the computer before I go to doing a bunch of copying and stuff. I'll just set it on the desk and oops. Well, I wasn't thinking about where that was aimed. I knew that was going to be a pretty ugly picture. It's me. Okay. So, there we go. As usual, I go. Everything I do takes forever. Yeah, I'll back all my stuff up. And I can't use this. I really can't use this thing anymore. I won't feel safe using this with it swelled that bad. Wait till it's, I imagine it may take you, like, you tempted, first thing you think, well, poke a hole in it and let that gas out, but you don't ever want to poke a hole in one of these kind of batteries. That would, even if you didn't catch on fire when you initially did it, like if if you accidentally went through more than just that outer layer of that bag, that's when it would just go on fire. And you can't put it out. Don't put water on them, by the way. You'd have to have one of those chemical fire extinguishers, and there's quite a few different types of chemical fire extinguishers for different types of fires. I don't know if this one that you generally see, consumer fire extinguishers would be the right one. It probably would work, but well, I'm not telling you how to do it because I can't remember. We were trained in that back in my old job back in the 80s. And I used to remember, the types A, B, C, D, and all that stuff. But you definitely don't want to put water on these if they were on fire. It will make it worse. And but I've watched them burn on the videos. They just, whatever you got it in, it's going to probably just burn right through it. If you got it in something thick enough metal, then it'll probably contain it. But it's still not a safe thing to play with. Anyway, most people. Well, what got me thinking about it so much is before that happened to my phones, my sister had an iPhone and she was over here one day and a year or two ago, and she was saying, "Dadgummit, my battery swelled up so much," and I hadn't even thought of, and I was like, "What? Let me see that," and I looked at it and it was swelled probably about this bad, and anyway, I had already seen some of those burning videos and anyway, I did, right after that, I did some more research on them, and then it was, I don't know, a year or so before that happened to mine. I didn't even have phones at the time. But I told her, they could be dangerous and stuff. She says, yeah, I heard that, kind of thing. But she was just, well, what she did was she says, oh, I got to plug it. Her battery was in such bad shape, it wasn't, these hold a charge, they work perfectly. They hold a charge, everything. So far, I mean, this one I can't say because I haven't, well, I used it it seemed normal. It was at about 96% when I took it off the charger, and I turned it off for a little while, and then I turned it back on because I decided to use it in this video because I already figured that out with this one that I'm using the audio with, that it would work and everything, and it seemed safe enough. I was afraid that using the battery would at first, like when my sister showed me hers, I was afraid using the battery might be dangerous, but it's charging them that could it will definitely make them outgas more and swell more, to the point they won't hardly stay in the phone, and I think if you kept And like I said, hers was getting to where it didn't work right anymore. It wouldn't stay. Her phone wouldn't run more than about 10 minutes, and then she'd plug it into the charger to keep it working. And that's what she was doing. You know, she had it with her, and because she was using it at the time just to show some pictures to my mom or something. I don't remember what, but and she wanted. I think her daughters were calling her or something. She was wanting to be online, online basically, um, online with the phone system. But well, at least the phone itself isn't damaged. If I decide I want to buy batteries for them, I can keep them going. And like I said, the one that got wet, once I dried it out real good. And at first I thought I would use something like this. Very good electrical cleaner. There's a red same brand. One's red and one's green. The green's the good one. I for I thought they'd changed the color. I just stopped seeing the green, and I thought, oh, they just changed the can color. And the red doesn't work very well. The green works really well, but it can melt certain types of plastic and stuff. So I don't think I ever sprayed my phone with it. And especially the screen, I was worried about ruining. You know, that screen's going to be delicate. You got the phone completely apart, where you can get to the screen and get it. And like I said, some electronics you might just not take them apart and just spray them with something like that. Let them dry out. Don't plug them in with it wet with that stuff. That's just flammable. And it's mostly for, it's called contact cleaner. I've used this. I discovered, well, I don't. I think the brand I was taught to use back in 1975 was a different brand, LPS brand. It is the best. Their lubricants, their electrical cleaner, everything's the best I ever used. This CRC brand is good too, though, but not the red. The green's the good one, and I use it on my electronics. It's really good for cleaning. You know, when your volume knobs make noise, and or your like if you have a left and right fader, on your stereo equipment, and they start making noise and cutting out and stuff, it'll usually fix that at least for a while. Once they get so old, they may just not. They may just get to the point where you're either going to buy a new device or you can do some work on the thing and replace those faders. But those pots, every time I want a word, I can't remember it, but they call them pots. Faders is what they generally call the ones on audio mixers. And because that's what they do. They fade the you can turn it up and down. I don't know why they get the name fader, because you don't just fade it. You don't just turn it down. You turn it up and down, but that's what they call them. Anyway, pots is generally what they call them on your volume and your pan. I was trying to say panning. There is a panning knob on my mixer, and there's pan knobs on home stereos, unless they're all electronic. But mine are all 80s. 80s to most of the stuff I've got is from the 80s, and then early 90s, and then I've got my TX deck that I got in the late 90s, cassette deck. I can't think of the proper name of them, but anyway. It's surprisingly, I didn't really realize this. I thought each one would be like different, but basically the same knob, the same type of device that you would use in an electric guitar, volume knob is the same basic. There are differences in them, their specs and stuff, and their size and shape. But the ones that are in your stereo from back in those days is going to be basically the same device, and I can't even think of the name of it. But and you can still buy that stuff, But it is quite a bit of work. I have a preamp that I loved, and I used it for years and years. What is that called? Dynaco. A Dynaco preamp. I have a Dynaco preamp and an 400-watt amplifier, which I fixed years ago according to instructions online, but I never did have. You have to set some trim pots on the thing. And I didn't have a meter that I could do it with, and I do now, but it's buried up and stuff in the garage, and I haven't ever felt like getting it out to fix it, to do it. So it's still sitting out there fixed, but not ready to go. It's actually still opened up and not put back together. But I used the preamp for years and years. I didn't, I just got this mixer a couple of years ago. And I used it for all of my, they're different. That's a home stereo mixer, or, well, it was being used in a home recording setup is what it was being used in, and it was good for that. Um, but it got to where every knob on it made so much noise, and the left and right would cut in and out and all that stuff. It got to where I couldn't use it anymore. And actually, during that time I was only using the red CRC because I didn't realize that the green CRC was still available. And I put it's still in my rack, but it's not being used. And for a couple of years now, 2 or 3, I kept thinking, I need to, you got to get that cleaner inside of the pots to clean them. And that thing is the way it's built. You just can't hardly get any cleaner to go in there. You need to take it up, open it up, and I haven't ever felt up to messing with that. Okay, so telling 100 stories, I'm just rambling, but okay, well, there we go. Investigation into the swollen battery complete. And yeah, I'm not going to be using this thing for a while. So the battery, I'm going to stay out, and I'm going to just put the cover back on it, keep it safe. See that it looks like it goes on good. Yeah, it was just the battery. The now that I have the swollen battery out of it, everything's fine. That was the side that was, you could see the light coming through. So I guess it was really just the. Of course, it's not going to. Can't turn it on now. I wonder if these things won't run without a battery. I don't think, but let's find out. Let's see. I'll take my power cord is. Let's see. I'm trying to see what's the easiest way to get. There we go. Oh yeah, it comes off real easy. I have it kind of, have that on it to keep it on the stand. I use a mic stand for a camera tripod, but yeah, I don't think this would work, but let's find out. Will this phone run without a battery? Yeah, I think they're wired to see whether or not the battery's in there to complete the circuit. Yeah, it's not going to do anything. That's what I figured. But I don't remember. I couldn't remember if I'd ever tried it. So, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so I saw a video. I do remember watching a couple of videos because I thought about doing that. Maybe I tried it and I forgot, but I do remember just now. I watched some videos. They were actually quite a few years old, 4 to 5 years old, and the guy was showing how he figured out how to make his phones work, because he's like me, well, I hate to spend that much money on the battery when I only paid so much for the phone, and literally I paid $15 for each phone, $15, which I've never seen them that cheap again. About the cheapest you ever see them now is $25, or $35, but, and pay $17 for a battery for it, but sometimes you can break, you can break that principle when you get enough use out of something that it's actually worth it. Because even though these things are as old as they are, they're still decent enough cameras until I get me. The cool thing is having 2 cameras, 3 really, but usually I use 1 audio and 2 for cameras. Whereas if I buy a decent camera of some, or half, not like a Nikon, DSLR or something, they're 500 up, like if I spend 100, say 100 to 150 or 200 on a camera, instead of, that 16 times 3, that's a pretty good chunk out of that. That's why I keep thinking why I didn't want to do it. So, or, what I've really been thinking about a lot, I didn't mention that, I guess I never did get to that point. I've been shopping for security cameras, and I've really got to go ahead and You know, a cheap set's $200, and they're not even going to be. Most of them are. You got to watch it. They could be 1.3 megapixels. A lot of them are 2, which is still not good enough. I know that from running this. You can't see things well enough. Well, you could see a lot better if it wasn't. See, I'm pointing it out through the window. These things can't be outside. You know, that's the other thing. And I've thought for years that even before I got these cameras, that if you had a security camera set up, you could do what I'm doing with these streaming videos with something like that, and you can just switch from, you know, if you had 4 of them, you could have 4 cameras to switch between. But um, I'm still debating about that. The security camera. Um, for streaming like this, unless you're, you know, if you're doing like I do a lot of the time, I'm either like if I'm in here on the computer and I want to show camera desktop, they'd be good for that. Or if you were out in the driveway working on the car or something, they could be good for that. Just set them up to where you know, you just switch between cameras. Because trying to handheld a camera, or I've done lots of videos on working on my vehicles, you know, where I'm either handholding them and shaky cam, you know, or setting them on a mic stand or other little baby tripod that this one's on. I got that endoscope is on one of my little baby tripods. I got 2 of them. But anyway, you're always well. Big problem I've had, like when it gets hot, if it gets over 100 degrees outside, which I try not to work out there when it's over that hot, but I have done it. Been out there when it was 105 and plus, 110 even. I start in the morning, and I'm kind of like a turtle in the pot. You know, you turn that heat up slowly, and I don't know it until I'm cooked, but about to pass out. But anyway, the phones quit working on me left and right. One day I was out there. I was in the garage with fans, and I was okay, but it was too hot for the phones. They kept shutting down. And so I was running my videos, you know. And so anyway, I've always wanted to, I thought, well, that's something that I had originally thought about using security cameras was for making videos. But now I realize I've been doing research, and there's so many variations of those things. I've been researching them, and I'm not going to get deep into it, but they, um, if they'll say you know, technically they do 1080p, and that's the resolution. You know, that's the rectangular size of the video. 1080 by whatever, I always forget what the other dimension is. 1080 wide by so and so tall. You know, but the quality of the video is in the megapixels and the bit rate. Uh, the more bit rate you got, the more data you got. You know, the more well, you know, like I used to call it, like in a printer, dots per inch, you know, it's that kind of a thing. Um, okay, the megapixels is how many, basically, dots per inch, and then the bit rate, I guess it's, you know, I can't explain it because I don't understand that well enough to try to even have to explain it. But the bit rate, higher bit rates are higher quality, higher megapixels, higher quality. Everybody knows, you know, your camera, you know, the digital cameras started out at below 1 megapixel, and they go up and up and up, and now anything considered decent is 12 megapixel, uh, you know, 16, 20, maybe more, up above 20 now. But, you know, there were, let's see, I believe I remember there being 10 megapixel cameras that were actually 720p. You know, they weren't 1080p yet. Now, of course, it's all 4K. But they can technically call them 720p, 1080p, 4K, when the megapixels can be in the bottom of the range, and the bit rate that it's capable of doing. The bit rate is usually, especially when I first learned about it, equated with streaming. You know how much data is being streamed, but it's also when you're recording of it. When it happens at the recording level when you're generally most everybody's going to record their video or their picture. They're going to save it as a digital file. You can stream without saving. You can just let it go into a temporary file, and then it just drops it as time goes by. It drops it off, and that's how streaming cameras do. When you're streaming a live video feed from your camera or your security camera or your phone, unless you have something to record it onto, or unless that camera has usually they use SD cards. That's one of the kind of cameras. The kind I may go ahead and get is anyway. Unless you're saving it, then it's just being streamed and it's gone. It's lost once it's. If you don't, you can view it. That's something else with security cameras is some of them, especially the ones that like you buy them one camera at a time instead of in a set. And they don't have a DVR. What do they call them? I forgot what they call them already. Some of them have a DVR, basically digital video recorder and router together in one box. The wireless ones, that is. Well, even if they're not wireless, there's still basically a wired router. Even if they can be wired or wireless, but it's a router and a DVR in a box. That's when you buy them in a set. But if your cameras are only like 2 megapixels, then you're definitely not gonna read any license numbers for a security camera, stuff like that. They may be all right for like what I'm doing right here. This is an okay picture, and I've got mine set at 720p, by the way. You might have noticed it's not completely wide, 1080p like this view right here. And that's because between the ability of the Wi-Fi chips on the phones and the routers and streaming 2 cameras and audio at the same time and streaming up to YouTube and all that, the routers can only do so much. So if I try to do 1080p, you just get drop frames. You just horrible video, much less the audio and video being in sync. So you want as high of a video quality as you can get, but if you're going to stream it for YouTube or for surveillance, then you're going to have to. You don't want them to be the highest I've seen on. I'm thinking wireless because I just can't crawl through the attic and run wires, do all that stuff these days. I think the best quality and the most dependable system you could get is the power over Ethernet ones, where the power and the data goes through the same Ethernet cable. Instead of having to run 2 cables, one for power and one for Ethernet, but you've got to run those cables from your router, wherever you're going to put it, all the way through your house or your attic. Generally, you're going to go through your attic, and all that stuff. So wireless would be the next thing, and then you're really limited to how much bandwidth you can run through your routers. Now, if you just get the kind that I'm thinking about getting that have an SD card slot where you can put an SD card in them, run it over your own router, then the most megapixels I've seen is 5, but those cameras, I forgot the brand name, they're got bad reviews and they seem to fail and stuff, that particular brand. And then the next one is 4 megapixels. It has pretty good reviews. I'm not even going to try to remember the brand names. Different brand. But that particular brand, it's 4 megapixel, and they're all going to say 1080p, or well, there actually are a couple on the market I think that are 4K, but they're just too expensive for me to want to mess with. And in wireless, you couldn't stream 4K on any regular home router, So and when you're doing if you're going to get at least, I really need at least 4 security cameras. And I know from experience that I'm not going to be able to stream 4 wireless security cameras on my router, the same router I use to get on the internet and do everything else. So I would really need to take a router, have another router that I'm not even using right now, and it'll do 750 or 850 wireless and the gigabit router. It's a few years older than the one D-Link I'm using now, and it's what is that? TP-Link or something. It's an N750. I can see that, but I can't see the brand. I forgot. I've got a TrendNet, a TP-Link. Yeah, it's a TP-Link. D-Link. I've got an old Linksys WRT that just doesn't work anymore, and of course it's too old, but it's only 54 megabits. But anyway, that one I would have to put different firmware on it, put DDWRT on it to even be able to use it that way. But I could put it like in the center of the house, and I do have a cable in there by the TV that I ran years. I have some Ethernet cables in the attic that I ran years ago. I could plug it in. Only thing is, it's a Cat 5 cable, not a Cat 6, so it's not going to do the full gigabit wired. But I could plug it in, you know, daisy chain it up to my D-Link router through that cable, and then there's two ways you can do it. You can either make the router be a wireless repeater. That's when I would have to put the other firmware on it because the firmware that came with it won't do wireless repeater. But I could put DDWRT or something like that on it, and it would be a wireless repeater. But then you're still running that. Well, there is a way to do that. I remember that. You can either have it not put out IP addresses when you have. I've run wireless repeaters for years. I got one in the garage. What I do is I have the IP addresses come from the wired router in the house, or wireless and wired router, but it's repeating that signal is what it's doing of your main router that's plugged into your internet connection to your modem. You know, in my case, I have a modem with cable modem. I put it in the. I had them out in the garage because that gave me internet in the garage, and then so it repeats that signal. It doesn't give out IPs. You get the IPs from the main router, and then I can plug wired computers, those old wired computers that I have out in the garage, and when I want to mess with them or just be able to get on the internet and check the temperature or whatever, or making my videos, you know, like I would turn on one of those old computers in the garage to monitor my video and see that it was working when I was trying to make a video out there. But that was on the absolute limit. Even with that, I couldn't, my streaming wasn't good. It was always, the audio and video was so far out of sync it wasn't really usable. And it would work for a little bit and then get really bad and stuff. So that was with those older routers though, the 54 megabit routers, you know. But these newer ones, now that I have two newer ones, I've been kind of wanting to set. The thing is, I've had two routers be out there for a couple of years. You know, one was out there 3 or 4 years. Another one was that Linksys was out there for about two years probably, and they both ended up just, I guess the heat killed them. You know, the heat and the cold just is too much for them. And even with me not running them all the time, I would only turn them on when I was out there most of the time. And they just got to where they wouldn't do more than 1 or 2 megabits, you know, even though all the lights are on, but nobody was home, you know. And at first I thought it might be a interference problem or something, or software, you know, or just the more data nowadays than there used to be. But I really think they're just not you know, the electronics is just not working right anymore in both of them. One was a Zonet, and the other one, and it came that way. It could be a wireless repeater, and that was my first wireless router, I think. Yeah, 10 plus years ago, 15 years ago when I got it. But the Zonet and the Linksys won't even work right anymore. Then neither one of them will do more than, you know, 2 or 3 megabits. And so, and I did put DDWRT on the Zone Linksys, and that's how come I was able to use it that way, because its firmware wouldn't do that either. Of course, it's the famous one that everybody used to love to hack, and I actually didn't hack mine until years after I had faster routers. I was always just scared. It was the one I was using all the time, and I was afraid I would. I was using the wired connection. Really, I wasn't even really using the wireless myself much, and I was scared I'd break it, you know, brick it, and because I just don't do well at following really long. I love to do. If I can figure it out, I don't know how to say it, I'm going in circles. Long drawn out, those are very distinct instructions, you know, you really have to follow them. So I've got to have a clear day in my foggy mind to follow instructions and do things. If I can just look at it in the software and say, you know, okay, do this, I can do it. Or if I'm used to doing it. But anyway, so if I was going to run, or if you were going to run your security cameras over a regular router, then you really wouldn't. I don't think you, unless you got some hotshot router, I don't think you would. You would slow down your whole wireless network so bad that you wouldn't be able to surf the internet hardly within a few hours to a day or two of having them running, because they're going to run 24/7. Otherwise they're not security cameras. They're not good for anything. So, but with a separate router, okay, now then you could do it like I was saying. Well, you can still make it a wireless repeater with that DDWRT, but have both routers giving out IP addresses. But the problem, that might be okay, or you could have, you could not turn it into a wireless repeater and have it plugged into the cable. You're still going to want to get to it, right, to see the video, so you have a cable running back to your main router. And then you'd have to open it up, turn it into a server, and that router won't work as a server. You won't. It says it will, but it won't. That TP-Link. So you'd still have to put DDWRT on it. This is just examples of the things I have. But anyway, run the wire, the uplink from that router to my D-Link in here, and just don't turn on the wireless repeater. Have it send out its own IP addresses. But then, if you have a device connected, like a laptop or a phone connected to this router, and then you go in there, well, that signal is going to walk. Those signals are going to fight each other. I didn't know that the first several years. I had two or three different. Yeah, I had when I first got the TP-Link, I turned it on. I had the Linksys on. All of them sitting here within 3 feet of each other, and I had a TrendNet that's wireless. I had them all on, and I noticed, and I had a couple old laptops, but I didn't really mess with them much. I mean, I had them plugged into the wired. I didn't really use the wireless, I'd use them right here. But I finally noticed after probably a couple of years, actually, that this signal, once I got these phones and I got app, wireless tracking app, to look at the wireless signal. Once I got these phones and got that, I finally realized that having those on, they were all fighting each other. And I had read that before, but I didn't. It was just kind of when I read it or saw it I really just read it. Didn't see it in videos that I remember. Anybody didn't say, oh, it's a real big problem. They would just say like, oh, they could maybe fight each other, So, but they were. And what I didn't realize is that the old routers, the Linksys actually had a more powerful radio than my newer routers. And it was walking all over them, even though it was a slower speed. So, because I thought it was cool to have the option to hook up to different routers, because if one wasn't working well, then the other one might, I just thought it was cool to have them all on. Backup plan, And turns out it was actually really knocking down the speed of the newer routers, the more faster routers. So then what I would do is turn off the radios in all but one, And then, except for if I wanted to go out in the garage, the TP-Link would only reach and do well in the living room. It was flaky, but it did okay once I turned off all the other routers. Well, if they were on, then your phone would, you would actually just lose connection. But when I would walk around with that app, I could just see, it's a graph, and you could watch the strength of the signals of each router going up and down. I've made videos showing it before, but I'd have to see this phone. Well, it's not working, so I can't. I'm filming on this one, and this one will work. So on the other one, I'm talking on it, so I can't really show it. But anyway, that was a really cool thing. That if you want to try to set up your wireless network, get an app on your phone that can see the wireless signals in your area. Plus your neighbors. Everybody else has got 2 or 3 or 4 routers, and I'm on one end of the house by the window here, so my neighbors' signals are strong. Sometimes they would walk on my older router signals. So, and that's another thing. that you got to deal with, you know. So if you don't use them as a wireless repeater, then they're going to be fighting with each other. So this end of the house will be fine, but if I put that in the living room for the surveillance cameras, or if you buy one with the router and a NVR, that's what they call them. And the NVR, they call it an NVR. So the NVR, digital video recorder, and a router in a box. And there is a lot of complaints about different, most all of them, you can't really get the camera as far away as you need to in most houses. This is not a very big house, so I might be better off than a lot of people. So this is about a 1,200 square foot house, and I'm guessing that a lot of the people that had trouble have 1,500 plus square foot houses, but you can get longer and I think basically what it is some of the companies will actually, if you have trouble, they'll send you a free antenna extender, they call it, or something like that. It's just a longer, you take off the short antenna and put on a longer one, but on the NVR. But so that's something you got to watch out for if you're going to buy a whole set. And like I said, to get a set with, 200 to 250 is about all I'm going to spend on my set. May have to spend a little more than that, but if you're getting 3, 4, 5, just not even 5 megapixel set. If you used to get into a 5 megapixel set, I think you're going to be looking at $500, $600, $800 for that set with an NVR and 4 cameras. And the other thing is, there's how many channels will they work with? Well, it's 4, 6, 8. And I've noticed that you can generally get an NVR that will get it with 4 cameras to start with, and then make sure it'll handle 6 or 8 cameras, because later you're probably going to want more. If you're going to get full coverage of your front and backyard. I'll be, 4 would basically handle my front and backyard, but not the side yard, and both side yards, So, of course, if you angle them right, then you can see somebody walking through there, and then of course you'll catch them on the other side when they come out, but you won't see them if they decide to bust into your windows or something on the sides of the house. You won't see that, but you generally, it's the doors is the main thing anyway. With this, and these our windows are up really high in these houses here, so they're not as easy to get through. If you did open it or bust it out or whatever, then you're going to have to do some real climbing to get through them. But anyway. Blank. So if it's wired, so the TP-Link, have it wired over here to the through the wire that already goes through the attic to the D-Link that goes out to the internet. But the D-Link, I open it up as I would have to put the DDWRT to be able to set it up as a server, though, so that I could point the bright ports to the cameras so they could be seen, and from in here in my room. And then anybody and it's sending out its own IP addresses for the cameras to connect to, giving them their IP addresses. And then if you're in there, then you could just connect with a wireless device straight to it. I generally, I'm always on my desktop. I can't see well enough to work with these phones, to do anything with them. So these are 4-inch screens, I think, and 5 inches is better. But anyway, I don't have it. That's what I have. But I keep putting everything right under the endoscope like I'm going to use it. But I'm trying to think this through for myself, as I guess more than I am for a video. But that's the one thing, though. So if I set that one up really to be the NVR form, but the thing is, the kind of cameras I would buy if I did that, I would buy the one. Well, you have to. You buy the ones that will connect up to a regular home router. Certain types of cameras and brands, And like most of them come with a SD card slot, not all of them. So I wouldn't really have one that didn't, because you're everything I've read on the reviews and everything I know about wireless camera work, I've been doing it for years. You're going to have those times when you lose connection to the router. And so if you lose connection to the router, power outage for one thing, this, and maybe that's right when, if it lasts long enough, you might really want those cameras working, right? If they have batteries, of course. That's one good thing about a phone. They have batteries and they're going to work for a while. Probably wouldn't work more than 30 minutes though. But yeah, those things don't have batteries, so well, they're going to be down when the power's out. Okay, forget that. There are some that do have batteries and they have solar cells to charge them, but uh, they're not powerful enough to run completely independent of electrical power. So most of them, the only one I saw, it would kind of basically make the battery last longer. Maybe there's some that will just completely keep them running, but the one I saw that would seem like a reasonable price, it would make the battery last longer. So you still have to, uh, you need more, you need two batteries, one, charge and recharge, and you're just not going to, I'm not going to remember to do that. Who wants to fool with that? It is, you don't have to run any cables to it that way, because even, I don't guess I mentioned that, even though you have a wireless uh, camera, so the video signal is going back to your NVR or your router, you still have to get power to it to run the thing, right? You got to watch that, because one that I was about ready to buy, it only comes with a 2.5-foot power cable. Most of them come with 10 to 15-foot power cables. I've read some of them come with 25-foot, but I haven't seen any. You could, if you go from the wall plug, like say over here, I'm not going to try to show it, but you know where your wall plugs are. They're usually a foot and a half, 2 foot off the ground. Okay, that's close to. I've got one right under the window, but then you've got to get. And the cables are small enough, you should be able to just stick them through the window, then shut the window on them, and get it around the edge of the screen, and out to a camera. But you're not going to be. I don't want them out mine up high anyway, because all the hoodlums wear their hoodies, and they keep their heads down, or their baseball caps, or both. They know to do that. So you don't want to mount your cameras up in the eaves, really, of your house, because you're not going to see them at the top of a baseball cap or a hoodie. You need to see the face. So you need to get down. On the one hand, you don't want them down to where they can be tampered with, but you do. If they don't see the face, it does you no good. So, and the other thing is, you're going to have a absolute minimum 15-foot cable to get up that high, anyways, if you want them up that high. But what I would do is, for one, what I'm planning. I've been using this one that I've just been talking about for the last 2 hours here. Actually, it's only an hour and 38 minutes, but I had it aiming this way, and I need another one aiming back that way, so that that way, if you're trying to, if a car's out there and you need to get its license, the possibility of getting its license number, it's not going to work if your cameras are aimed like that. But so this one covers my front door and the driveway. But of course, the right side of the house, the way I'm looking out the window, it's not going to cover that. So another one, actually, but then the other thing is to see the mailbox and all that stuff. The way I have a van, and it's blocking the mailbox, it's blocking the small car and the mailbox. So you need one where you can see the mailbox, because identity thieves love to steal your mail, right? So I would need one going like this, one going like this. And then ideally, I'd want another one in the middle, going straight at the face of somebody coming up to the door. So that's 3 on the front. And that may be what I would do if I have 4 of them. And then one on the back. I really need 2 on the back, going like this. But I probably have to get by with one on the back because of the price, the cost. That can hopefully get, both back doors in there. And there's not, to me, I'm not worried about, even if somebody does. Well, it's a funny thing. Everybody has fences but us, so our fences are really our neighbors' fences. So we don't have a fence at the back of our house, with gates. But over the years, and it's actually been, I grew up in this house, so over the years, there's been people. It was the kids we grew up with. Of course, we're always kids to our parents, right? So the kids we grew up with, uh, they were down the road, and for some reason they were walking, and they knew us, so they would go through the house behind us, crawl over the fence, and then go through, and then of course they know we don't have we don't have a dog, and all, we don't have a fence to keep a dog, and they're heading home. Well, that's fine, somebody but then, well, a few years later there were some renters across the street, and they were troublemakers, little punks, and somebody they would do something, and somebody would call the cops on them, and then they would use our yard to go up into the house behind us and sit there on the front porch of that house, and that's on the highway, and they would sit there and laugh and watch the cops go by. They're sitting over there. The thing is, our police station is the closest you can hear when they take off and turn on their sirens to us where we live. And so they could hear these sirens. So before they get here, they've already. And I didn't. It was a long time before I realized, but I saw them one time, and well, somebody told me too, I think. But anyway, that's what they used to do. But they moved out. They were renters, and they finally moved out, so that was good. But the house straight across the street, they only had two different families in it for most all of my life until the last 10 or so, 15 years. And it's changed hands, 4 or 5 times. But there's people living in it that own it now, so they're no problem. But anyway, there's just an example of what makes you think about where you'd want cameras and stuff. Anyway, what I was trying to say is we don't have anything in the backyard now. I used to actually have a boat and a truck back there and stuff, but I don't now. What you're worried about is the doors and the windows, right? You want to, you're worried about people trying to get in your house and stuff. So, and your vehicles and all that. So, and of course you want to be able, if you possibly can, get the license numbers of any cars in the street, because most of the time they're going to pull up in a car, and if they're going to steal a car, then you definitely want to catch that. And So, back to the technical end of it, what I was really talking about. So you could buy a camera that, I guess it's just all, I kept saying, I was not wanting to, since I've got this, I can't really open, as much as I've got, this, I think my everything will come to a screeching halt if I try to open up Firefox. I can't even surf on Chromium. Nothing's right. Nothing's in the right place. I can't use it, and it uses too many resources. So if I open up Firefox and start showing the actual ones I'm talking about, then I think it'll overwhelm this machine. So it'll have to be another video if I actually do that. So anyway, the type that I was just about settled on, and then I keep going back and forth about, I don't see one that I really want to spend the money on, even if, spending like $46 is what they were. They may have went back up. They were actually marked down to about $46. That's the type that'll do there's one that'll do 3 megapixels. It had about a 15-foot power cord. This is a wireless camera and an SD card slot, but then you got to buy the SD card. So that's another expense, another $15 to $20 for one of those. Or the 4 megapixel, but it only had a 2.5, and it actually had decent reviews. The apps. The apps would not even, the one that was 3 megapixel, the apps wouldn't even install on my phone. So that's out. The one that's 4 megapixel, which I'd rather have, okay, the app will work. It's pretty crappy, but it'll work. The power cord's too darn short, so then you got to spend another $5 to $10 on an extended power cord, and then you got to buy the SD card. So that starts really adding up. So then I go, okay, well, maybe I better look back at the sets. About $250 for what's half decent set, but I have not found for 4 cameras and an NVR for about $250 225 to 250. That's not a bad price, but about the best megapixels I've seen is 2. So you can see people, if you know, if they're up close enough, you'll see their faces and everything. This is, like I said, this is about, I think this is only 1.7 megapixels what I'm recording on right now. Of course, this is in perfect distance, good lighting and everything. You can see who I am. But if somebody's up to no good, they're going to do their best to hide their face and everything, you know. So it's better, you know, the higher resolution, the higher megapixels, the higher quality of the video, the better. And but using your own router, definitely on the wireless, I really would want cameras that, most of those cameras don't have SD card slots. Some of them do, I think. Mostly the ones that have SD card slots are the ones that are really meant for you to hook up to your own router. The ones that come with an NVR and all that, I think I might have saw a couple sets that had SD card slots. Of course, they didn't come with SD cards. You'd have to buy those. But the reason SD card slot is so good because it'll do a round robin recording. You know, it'll keep recording all the time onto that SD card, and after it gets full, it'll delete some file. You know, delete and record, delete and record. That way, if you have something happen, and if you get to it within a few days or a day, or I don't know how, you know, depends on how big you. I mean, if you get like a 64, usually the most they'll handle is a 64 gigabyte SD card. If you get one of those, you know, you're going to easily have 3 days to 5 days, you know, of video on there. So you have a little time to get to it. Of course, that costs more money. So I was thinking of going with 32 gigabyte SD cards. Then you should have 2 or 3 days, I think. It depends on, well, the resolution you record. One thing I would, now, the problem is, I know I can't stream 1080p on any of my routers. I have to do 720p. Now, if I could stream 720p and record in 1080p, then you'd have something worth using. Plus, you need, you know, if you had the 4 megapixel camera. I've only seen one brand that was a 5 megapixel in a decent price. It was about $47 or $50. Yeah, they were marked down too. You buy them from that manufacturer's website. They're a brand I'd heard of on and off. I thought they might be pretty good, but and I've seen videos where people really liked them. But I've also seen, when you look at the reviews on Amazon, people, you know, Amazon, you know, it's kind of hard to decipher the reviews anymore because there's so many giveaways and stuff to where people just write a good review to get it for free and all that crap. And one of the sellers was saying, get an extra so and so off. I said, okay, let's see what this. Well, let's buy it. I usually don't, but I bet. And I said, email us at this to find out how to get an extra 5 or 10% off or whatever. And so I did, and they said, all you gotta do is write a review. And I saw in the reviews that they once you give them your email address, they hammer you to death to give them a 5-star review. And of course, I wouldn't do it unless I liked it. I don't care what, but I don't want to mess with that. And it turned out to be a system I don't want because their app didn't work at all, I think, mainly. But, well, and I asked them more questions, and they didn't answer my questions straight. They give me, what they did is they give kind of bull crap answers on one question and not even answer the other 2 or 3. So I just quit talking to them, you know. That's the only one I actually wrote to or anything. I don't like to do that. You don't want to go through all that crap just to buy some product, you know, but it's gotten to that with a lot of, well, with these, there's so many variations. There's so much. They can be half decent or they can be complete crap, you know. And with electronics and technical stuff like this, a lot, you know, not everybody that buys this stuff, probably half the people that buy it don't understand how to use it. So they get bad reviews because they just don't understand how to set it up. They don't understand how to install it. They don't understand the software end especially. And I don't like messing with crappy apps on phones. You know, I really don't like it. And a lot of them, you can't even set them up without an app. You either got to use a phone or a tablet to even set the things up. Well, so in that case, you've got to make sure the app will run on your phone and work, you know. And so two or three of them, I go ahead and go to the trouble to go to, you know, I have Android phones, go to the Google App Store, and that app will not work on my phone. It's not compatible with my device. So that knocks that out, even though the system seemed okay and had decent reviews. Um, so I'm going in circles because that's the way it is. I mean, I just can't. That's why I haven't bought one yet. I can't get it all down in my mind well enough um, to pick one. So, but at first I just thought, it's 1080p camera, so it's bound to. It's a new device. It's bound to have. I was figuring they were going to be at least 5 megapixels, all of them. And then most of them don't. If they don't tell you what the megapixel is, you better find out because it's probably going to be below 2 megapixels. There's some that are 1.3, 1.7 around in that range. Most of them are 2 megapixels, and then there's a few. And the only ones I found that are above 2 megapixels at a decent price so far are the ones where you buy the camera and use it with your own router. And that's what I keep leaning towards. But the more I think about it, I just reminded myself, yeah, I could get it to work if I stream in 720p, but I can record in 1080p. And finding that out would be like pulling teeth, I'm sure. But that's what I need to find out if I'm going to get one of those. And now I'm to the point where I've got to make a decision and do something because I can't keep using my phones. I can't use this one. And what I was thinking I would do, and I guess I will, is the one I'm using right now. Put it over there as my security camera, but I don't want to completely ruin the batteries in them. Imagine the swelling will go back down and it'll still be usable like the Phone 3 did, but it may take a month or two for it to just seep through the pores of the plastic is what happens. You're definitely not, like I said, not going to poke the thing. Most likely, it would very likely catch on fire and be dangerous. And I mean, I could poke it in a can or something, outside, but why do that? Why? I mean, those things they're bad. Uh, Once they start burning, they burn until there's nothing left of them. Unless you've got I don't have a chemical. Well, I've got a fire extinguisher in the garage, but I don't think it might be an all-purpose chemical one. I don't think it's not water. I've never bought a water fire extinguisher. Why buy a water fire extinguisher? You got a water hose. Anyway, and you don't want to use them on any. I mean, what are the fires you usually have in a house? Electrical, grease when you're cooking. You're going to want something that's safe to use for electrical or a grease fire or something like that. Or nowadays a battery fire. But anyway, so yeah, that's the only way I can really see, unless don't remember when I bought my D-Link router a couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago now. I mean, I haven't looked at them in the last few months, this year much at all. I haven't looked at them much since I bought that one, really. But I remember seeing the Linksys. They started making the WRT again, and it's like $250 or $300. Had some good specs. That one I looked at, but I don't know. You'd be hard pressed to find a router under $250 that would even think about handling 1080p video streaming 24/7. 4 cameras, not just one, but 4 or more. So then you back to the NVR, and it's not that those NVRs are better routers, because I see that's the biggest complaint they have on wireless surveillance cameras, is the loss. They're always having to reboot and reset their cameras and their NVR, which is their router. That's the biggest complaint, and a lot of the sellers, the way they they realize, well, about all they can do is give them a better antenna to put on their camera. Well, you actually don't put better antennas on the NVR. You put a lot of them don't. Most of them don't have external antennas. Cameras have external antennas, so you put a longer, more antenna that can send the signal more. You could call it more powerful, I guess, antenna. And that seems, some people said that fixed the problem. So yeah, if you're just buying one with an antenna about so tall, you're probably going to end up needing it about so tall. About twice as long is what I'm seeing, unless you really have a clear line, you don't have a bunch of walls between your NVR and the camera. And basically, I think if you've got a 1200 to fit, well, I don't know about 1500 square. I'm going to say this house is about 1200 foot, and I've used, like I said, I've had wireless repeaters in the garage, and that works great. Works good. I never noticed it helping a lot though. Okay, you got the wireless, I got this, whatever router I have here in this room at one end of the house, and then at the full other end is the garage. Wireless repeater on the outside wall, right on the shelf in the garage. That makes the signal usable out there. Mostly I used it for plugging a desktop into that router and using a desktop out there. But I did, once I got the phones, I'd take them out there. And well, I tried doing videos out there with these phones here, and they just didn't, they wouldn't work. They weren't usable for video streaming out there. So I thought, so having that, another router in the living room, which is basically right in the middle, that probably, and well, these were the older routers. They were 54 megabit routers. Actually, that ZoneNet was 150 megabits. So, neither one of them I could stream video out there. Well, by the time I got these cameras, that ZoneNet wasn't working right anymore anyway. But so if I had the other one, the TP-Link, that's capable of 750, 800 megabits wireless, and a gigabit, 1,000 megabits wired. So if I had it in the living room, I don't know if it could. See, there's the garage wall, but the garage is full of boxes and stuff, just full almost to the ceiling. Oh, that one side of it is, and the other side's got stuff in the other side too. So that's going to block the signal. So I don't know if putting one in the living room, which is the only place I can really put it and plug it into a cable. Either way, that the thing is, you want your surveillance router. You want it in the center so that it can get, this those two corners and those two corners, and where you can put your cameras. Well, I'll probably, like I said, I'll probably put 3 on the front and 1 on the back. So it would be one on probably near the garage, and then, well, maybe not. I might put it kind of in the middle of the house and point it back towards the garage. Trying to get both doors, like one door in the center of the house and then the garage door towards the end of the house. So, but then in the front, I really do want 3 cameras. One going this way, one going out to the mailbox, and then one going straight on to people walking up to the front door. So, well, I thought I might put it it'll be under the porch, and it might go that way. And so then you have 2 angles that'll, if cars in the street, you can have 2 chances to get their license number if they pull up to do no good, in front of your house there. But you need to catch them as they move along, so that you maybe at one point in there you'll get that, 1 second or half a second or even less to get that. Actually, the camera will be at the right angle to be able to read that. But that's only if you have a high enough resolution. And of course, they have to work good. If it's at night, you may never get it. These phones will do. They switch automatic from day and night, but it's not good enough to be reading anything. At night, all you see is the lights on the cars just wash everything out, and you see where the license plate is because if there's lights over it, but you're not going to read anything, and you're really not going to read it in the daytime. Not going through the window and the screen for sure. That's the way I've been doing it. But you can tell who people are. Like, you can tell what they look like. Like, if I see somebody I know, I recognize them, and like I can see that somebody's wearing a UPS uniform or whatever like that when they're bringing a box or something like that. But in the daytime, at night, we do have a light on out there, and it's using the night. You have to use the night vision to see anything still. If it's well, I've walked out there and stuff like that, and I can tell it's me. Of course, I know me, but anyway, you need your surveillance cameras to be not looking through the window and the screen for darn sure. Even if it was just the window, you get the reflections of the light inside the house when lights are on, and the sun in the morning, and all that stuff. So they need to be outside, and I mean, there's no. You don't want to spend any more than you have to, but if you spend $200, $250, on a system that's too low of a resolution, then all you've got is just kind of grainy, fuzzy video. It's not, well, like I say, basically going to be about like what you're looking at right now, looking at me. But if you're 30 feet away or 15, I'm arm's length from the camera here. That makes a good picture. But if you're, you know, 15 plus feet away, 15 to 30, 40 feet away, then these cameras just ain't going to do it. It doesn't matter that you could zoom in and on the digital picture, it's just going to pixelate. It's just going to be grainy. You're not going to be able to make anything out. So that's why you need higher resolution, and you don't have to really pay attention to. I don't. You could, the bit rate and all that. I don't know that these. I don't remember them even giving out the bit rate. Maybe some of them do in the specs when you look at those things. But generally, if you've got, I'm thinking from all my experience of doing video at around 2 megapixels digital video. On my digital video experience of doing, well, just under 2 megapixels, I'm figuring double that would be, enough better. It's probably not going to be double better as far as your ability to zoom in and all that stuff, but it should be enough better. We could definitely recognize people now as far as getting enough picture that if it was actually a real crime and it was run through a face recognition database, I think they could be found. I don't think you'd ever get the police to do that, but you can do it yourself maybe. But unless it was a really bad crime or something. But we're looking to catch thieves here. But but the license, I really don't know. I wouldn't know till I tried it if I was going to get a readable license plate, which is one thing you really do want to try to get at least. So you don't want to spend $250 on a system that, it gives you 4 cameras, but nothing's clear enough to do you much good. So that's why I keep debating and going around and around about it. I like to messing with. Well, I've done it enough years now. It's not a new fun thing to learn about the routers and repeaters and all that stuff. It's kind of more like it's a job I got to do now, but to set something up like that. But so part of me would just rather get the package deal that'll just work, and it'd be enough work just to hang the cameras and stuff like that, and get the wiring. The power. You still got to get a power cable to go to each camera and all that stuff. Figure that out. I've thought of places that I should be able to, as long as the power cable's at least 15 feet long, I should be okay in all the places where I want to put them. I'm still going to have to run them, at least this one here through. I can run one of them out my window and plug it in here, and then another one in the back of the house is going to have to go through a window, or well, it wouldn't have to. I could put it in. There's a light. One thing, if you hadn't thought about it, exterior lights are a perfect place to plug things in. All you got to do is get one of those little adapters that you screw in where the light bulb goes. It has a couple of plugs on it, AC outlets on it, and then put your light bulb on in there. In that, I've used them ever since. All my life, those things have been around. I discovered them when I was a little kid. They were in the garage, and I don't know where they came from, and they were cool. And I've used them. So that's, wherever you've got a light, then you could plug but you got to remember to leave the light on all the time, day and night, though. That's the thing about that. You got to have power going to it. Now, what you can do, though, is get, or you can't have, it's not going to fit inside of the light, like say your porch light fixture, you've only got so much space. I haven't even looked, but that's another thing to buy, though. I'm like on my back door of the garage. Years and years ago, I hung up a spotlights, two-way spotlight, and it had auto sensing. Well, since then, I've seen where you can buy a lot. There's movement sensors, and before that, they came out with, dark and light sensors was the thing, and that's what I have out there. Is when the sun comes up, it turns off. When the sun goes down, it turns on. And that's built into that light fixture, but you can buy them where you just screw them into a regular light socket and then screw the bulb into it, and it'll do the same thing. But you can do motion sensors if you want. But that's something you could do with security cameras, but you would not ever be sure that it booted up just right. You know, it's not going to boot up very fast. Say if you had your you wouldn't want your, that's what I'm trying to get at, is you could have a sensor that would turn the light on and off either day and night, or motion sensor. Well, motion sensor would really freak out your camera's light sensor though. So I would really just have the light on all night and off all day. So you could have that, but if it had a day-night sensor, light sensor, and plugs in it, and then screw that into your light socket, and then put your light bulb in there. Of course, you could. Well, I got to where I use the LED bulbs now. They're shaped like a regular light bulb, but they're LEDs inside. I use those now. I used to use the fluorescent ones, but they got to be manufactured so poorly that they were dangerous. When they got old, they would literally burn up inside and spark and smoke and short out. And I got to where I was afraid of the things. They lasted for, well, they last as long as they should, like as last as regular fluorescent bulbs do. But as soon as they started coming out with a decent price for LED bulbs that, they're shaped like a regular light bulb, and they're usually, a little shorter. Yeah, I'm just blinding myself. They're a little shorter by about half to an inch shorter than a regular light bulb usually. So I'm thinking of being inside the light fixture. Of course, like I say, the one on the back porch, there's no fixtures on it. So as long as it's, I don't know if one of those LEDs would be safe outside. I guess if a floodlight or a spotlight's safe outside, it probably would be too. I would check. I wouldn't just put one out there without seeing that it was somehow rated to be outside, though. But anyway, uh, yeah, out there I can put anywhere where you have a light fixture. You can do that, but you're also going to have to ensure that you really need to ensure that you leave that light on, all that switch on. If it has a switch to it, which most of them do, that you leave that switch on. And so that's why I'm saying get the sensor and all that too, because you don't want your light bulb, running all day. People will probably, just out of habit, you see the lights on the porch, well, you just flip it off. You're gonna have to retrain yourself not to turn it off. Um, so anyway, dealing with more people in the house than yourself, then you're going to have to deal with that. Figure that out somehow. And I am. So, but anyway, so I've got the back porch, the front porch, back garage porch, the front porch that I can do that way. The over the garage, then there actually, when the house originally had a small light that was probably 10 feet off the ground or so, maybe not even that high. No, more or less than that. I think it's about 7 or 8 feet off the ground. And I pulled the cable through and mounted an old porch light fixture inside the garage to give more light in the garage years ago. I think I did it when I was a kid, actually. See, I grew up here in this house, moved away when I was 18, got married, raised kids, got divorced, came back when my health got bad in the 90s. And I've been here since then, late 90s, mid to late 90s. So, a lot of history in this old house here for me, for us. So anyway, there is a place where I could stick that cable back out. I know I wouldn't stick the cable back out. I would run the power, the DC. It's DC power. It's 12 volts, I think. But they have a wall wart. That you don't want your wall wart outside though. That's the thing. That's the thing. I just remembered. Everything I was talking about could be negated because of the wall wart that they use to power the cameras. It really needs to be. You don't want that thing outside in the weather, the heat, the rain, all that stuff. It's going to get in it. It's going to deteriorate. It may short out. Even if it doesn't short out, it's going to quit working pretty soon if it's in the rain and everything. So up under the porch is about the only place that I could do that. The porch light, it's sheltered enough. It's not going to get wet. The back is not sheltered enough. It's under the eave, but it's down a foot and a half below the eave, and still, when the wind blows, your eave's only a foot wide, yeah, overhang on the ceiling roof. So the back one, yeah, see, too many things to consider. And the garage in the front. Now I'm getting where I can't talk anymore. The front there in the garage, the one I want to have over the driveway in the mailbox. I'm gonna have to have a cough drop. Is that the last one? These are what saved me when I talk on the video. They work pretty well. Anyway, I was going to run the power cord back through. That hole is still there, you know, from when there was a light there. I don't know when I did it, but at some point I installed those big, same type of light that's a street light. Those were popular years and years ago. Now, I installed that, but I ran a wire for it, a new wire. So it's up high, comes on at night and goes off in the day. So I can mount my camera down below it. Where the original light used to be. I can't even talk. Trying to get some of that. Anyway, I'm just going on. That's just for all that stuff I'm talking about, just to get power to your wireless camera, one way or the other. You have the type of windows and screens where you could, it's not a real big cable, it's about an 1/8 inch or a little more in diameter, a round cable. And you can buy flat cables, decent, you know, power cables, but that's more money to spend. Well, I was seeing a video where a guy was using power over Ethernet cameras. So it has the Ethernet signal, the video signal going through, and the power to run the camera over one cable. That's a real good way. But when you do that, though, you've got to run that cable all the way from all the way from wherever your camera is back to where your NVR is. Or router, if you didn't use an NVR. Then you'd have to have a router that does power over Ethernet. I don't have one of those. I have to buy one if I was going to do that. Well, I'm completely overcome by my coughing. No point in keeping on going. I'm just rambling. So, hopefully, I went through some stuff that was helpful to someone or to myself later if I want to go back and look through it. But anyway, that's my thing right now is I dropped it. The battery for the phones and the surveillance cameras that I need to get something. So I'm going to go Can't talk anymore. All right. Bye bye.